Welcome to another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It.
Well, hi there. It's Matthew Blades, speaker, leadership coach, and former broadcaster. And this is the show that's all about when life becomes the teacher. Today, we're going to sit down with Dr. Dave, as we do every Wednesday, and we're going to talk about metacognition. Now, when he hit me this morning and he said he wanted to talk about metacognition, I emailed him right back and I said, what the F is that? So bring him in to find out what metacognition is all about and why would somebody want to keep listening to this podcast. Hey, and welcome to the show. But so help me out here. What is metacognition?
Well, we're building on the previous episodes that we've done and some of the previous Substack articles that I wrote. Metacognition is easiest to understand as thinking about thinking. It's the ability to pause and reflect on your own thought process rather than just have it go forward unchecked. So a way to think about it is you might become irritated by something. You're feeling that tension build inside of you. And instead of just reacting, where metacognition comes in is you have the awareness, I'm becoming pissed off. I'm starting to get pissed off right now. Right. So you're not choosing an action necessarily, but you're just aware of an internal process or either an internal thought process or something that's going on in your body that is taking you in a direction. You're aware of the fact that it's occurring.
Got it. Okay. So look, that kind of happened to me last night. I got fired up about a situation, and let me ask you this before I get into that story. Is this kind of like overthinking, or is that different?
So this would be different in the sense that okay, we talked about fast and slow thinking, and we also talked about thresholds needing to be reached before action. So with a fast thinking process, all of the elements come into play. You encounter something in the environment that is kind of prompting you to move in a direction, and you're processing all of the inputs, and then instead of automatically doing that thing, this is so instead of a process. So fast thinking is a process of the thought comes and you just do it. The slow process is the thoughts come and you pause and analyze, right? So those are both process-oriented elements of the brain functioning. This is the ability to press pause and just leave some space before choosing what direction to go. So overthinking is a process, right? You're analyzing things and thinking about possible outcomes, but it's not necessarily the noticing.
Okay. All right. Can you give me an example? Are you comfortable giving me an example about something in your life where metacognition has been beneficial to you? Is that even the right question to ask? Like, is metacognition beneficial or not beneficial, or is it just kind of a function?
Yeah. Metacognition is always beneficial, because it gives you the ability to choose your direction. Where metacognition has been helpful for me as a practicing psychiatrist is, let's say you're doing therapy with somebody and something about their demeanor just feels off. They're just kind of rubbing you the wrong way, and you find yourself getting annoyed with them. Well, you're there to provide care for them, right? So however you feel about the situation should be secondary. It shouldn't really play into the fact that you're there trying to help. So instead of just reacting to that, let's say if you were annoyed with a bank teller, or you're annoyed with a sales associate in a department store, you might get a little sarcastic. You might get a little short with your answers. You might start displaying things that would indicate that you're not happy with them or the interaction, without having a conversation about it. You're just kind of acting pissy. In the context of therapy, that wouldn't be appropriate, right? So you have to be able to recognize what's going on, recognize what's happening in yourself, and maybe in the moment you don't know how to answer that. Like, why is this guy pissing me off so much? But you at least have to be aware of it, aware of the process, and then hit the brakes before it starts to sour the session.
How could we apply this to people at work? Folks who have that 9 to 5, and they're dealing with coworkers. What would the application be there?
Yeah. Some people have a better filter than others, and some people have better control over their responses than others. So developing metacognition would take you back to, are you getting the results that you want in your interactions with other people?
Mm,
If you're finding yourself in situations where every time you have an interaction with somebody, it turns into an argument, or every time you have to talk to the boss, you start to feel intimidated and then end up getting annoyed with yourself for not standing up for yourself in that moment. So that's part of the recognition. After the fact, you can start to recognize things after the fact, but developing metacognition would be working on developing that muscle, working on developing that ability to catch it in real time, and to practice being able to put that space in real time and be able to choose a different outcome in the moment rather than feeling frustrated after the fact, after it's already happened.
So it feels to me like this takes some work. Like we might not be good at this metacognition out of the gate. This is something that's going to take us. This is a muscle that we need to work on. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and some people are better at it than others naturally. Maybe some
Hmm.
people have had experiences that have allowed them to develop this ability earlier on. For me as a psychiatrist, part of my training was specifically to stop and pause and take a look at your reactions to things rather than just react. So for me, I've had formal training in doing this, but that formal training doesn't automatically spill over into your personal life. You have to be aware of it and be mindful of how you're treating other people, or how you're reacting to things, and whether that reaction is getting you to the place that you want to end up.
Okay. I think I'm following along, but you know me, I'm a slow learner when it comes to these things. And so you will have to forgive me if I keep going kind of like around and around, because my brain is trying to understand this metacognition piece and how it could just be so useful for people to understand it. And so I'm going to ask a stupid question, man, but like, is metacognition something we do?
It's not. It's not something that you do as far as a process, but it's developing the ability to become aware. It's
Okay.
developing the ability to recognize. So if you start to feel tension in your body because you have an interaction with somebody that's not going well, it doesn't mean that you automatically need to become sarcastic toward them. It doesn't mean that you automatically need to retreat from them. This is just the awareness that you're becoming irritated. So one of the cognitive shifts that can be helpful in determining in trying to get better at working with this is when anger starts to build, instead of telling yourself, I'm getting angry, you can start telling yourself, I'm aware of anger, right? So
Mm,
it's a slight distinction. Um, I'm getting angry implies that it's an automatic process. You have no control over it. It's just going to run its course until it's done. Where I'm aware of anger means that you can feel the tension inside of your body. You can feel your hands clenching up. That doesn't determine what direction you're going to go with it. Um, in fact, building metacognition in that context, in that situation, might mean you feel yourself getting angry, you're aware of it, and you choose to not say anything sarcastic or do anything differently. You just kind of sit, take a deep breath, and just wait for the moment to pass. And then after
I've
the emotions have wound out of it, after the emotions have settled down, then you can think about it more deliberately and figure out what course of action makes sense to be able to stand up for yourself, to preserve a friendship if there's a friendship involved, to weigh all the sides of the situation and figure out where the boundaries are. You don't automatically have to do something in the moment.
It feels to me, I was just getting ready to say, it feels to me like this would work really well for people who feel anxious. Because I've heard this expression before of like, I'm not an anxious person. I'm experiencing anxious thoughts right now. I'm
Mhm.
experiencing them. This kind of goes back to what you said. And this could be really good for hotheads, right? People that are super quick to anger.
Yep.
So if you fall into one of those two buckets with us, I mean, keep listening. We're going to spend the next 10 minutes
Yeah.
kind of talking about this. You
Well,
sent me
anxiety in particular is an interesting one.
yeah, let's
I
talk about it.
I've worked with a lot of people that have anxiety in new situations. So they're about to do something that they've not done before, they're not familiar with it, and they tell themselves that they're having anxiety, and then that anxiety can build, and then you start having the catastrophic thoughts like, "Oh my god, what if I screw this up? I'm gonna embarrass myself." Now you're compounding it and building it up even more, and your hands are clammy, you can't get the words out of your mouth, you're getting short of breath. So you're taking that anxiety and by what you're telling yourself, amplifying it in a way that ends up degrading your performance and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But the mechanism for anxiety is exactly the same mechanism for excitement. So if you're about to get on a roller coaster and you like roller coasters, you like the thrill of going down those steep hills and how it feels in your body and the anticipation building as you're waiting online to get on the ride. Excitement and anxiety are the same bodily process. The difference is the cognitive piece of what you're telling yourself about it. So if you're about to do something that you've never done before and you're starting to feel that tightness, you could also tell yourself, I'm excited about this. I can feel the
Mm.
excitement in my body. So that's a cognitive shift. And it started with the awareness that there's something happening in your body. And then you made a deliberate choice at that point to choose whether you're going to go the anxiety route and build it up into this thing that ends up crashing you, or whether you can look at it a little differently, accurately and honestly, but differently, and allow it to take you to a different place where you're looking forward to it. You're anticipating it instead of dreading it.
This makes me so happy because I feel like for the last 20 years, I've been telling people, especially when I work with youth athletes, and they'll tell me, like, I'm so nervous for the game. And I'll say, no, switch that. You're super excited about it. Like,
Mhm.
you're feeling an excitement there. Lean into that. So it makes you feel
Right.
good. I had no idea what metacognition was really until today. So, that's good. You did send me a couple of things that we could talk about, and one of them was something called the control matrix.
The
We've got about 5, 6 minutes left. Do you want to jump into that?
Yeah, so we can talk about the awareness control matrix, and then I want to leave some time to talk about what you can do to build up metacognition, because not everybody
Okay.
knows how to do that. But
All
the
right.
idea of
Awesome.
the idea of the awareness control matrix. So think of two different axes that interact with each other. So one is awareness, either high awareness or low awareness, and the other one is control, whether you have high or low control in the situation. So a situation with a low awareness, low control, this is pure reactivity. No filter, impulses fire. You have the thought, you immediately do it without reflecting on it or thinking about the consequences. So these are old patterns that repeat automatically, unchallenged. And a lot of times people will just say, "Well, this is just how I am." But
Mhm.
there's no metacognition there. There's no control. There's no pushing the pause button to find a different uh, avenue to take. So when awareness is high and control is low, these are people that see the unwanted patterns repeating, and they see it, but they have no ability to divert and to pick a different path. So this is the person that says, I know, I keep doing this every time. I wish I wouldn't, but I do. The third possibility is low awareness and high control. So these are folks that tend to be very rigid. They follow the rules, but there's no feedback loop to allow them the flexibility to change the rules or maybe consider other outcomes. And these rules aren't necessarily correct. This is just what they have in their mind. It has to be this way, and there is no other way. So you can see the types of frustrations that can happen in that situation. There's no insight that's developed in that. And then finally, this is the sweet spot: high awareness, high control. You notice activation. There's a moment where you decide whether to engage or not, or whether you want to redirect it into something else, or just pause and let it pass without doing anything. So here you have the maximum amount of agency, the most flexibility, and this is kind of where you want to end up on this continuum of awareness versus control.
Amazing, man. This is such a good learning podcast today. Look at this. We're learning from people who lived it, exactly what we intended to do. All right, let's talk about how to do this. Like, how do we put this into our lives? How do we build metacognition? What do you do about it?
Well, be aware of whether you're being aware. So there are some things that you can do to help build the ability to pause and build the ability to reflect. I've found yoga to be particularly helpful for somebody that is not great at doing this, that they're kind of the low control and low awareness person. Yoga can be helpful as an introduction. So what I found in yoga is, if you're holding a pose, sometimes the yoga instructor will say, be aware of the alignment of your hips right now in this position. Or you're sitting down and you're doing some relaxed breathing. Be aware of your breath right now, and take a nice deep breath in, and be aware of the sensation as the breath is leaving your body. So it's deliberately drawing your attention to physical sensations in your body that you would otherwise just ignore. They're there all the time. They exist whether you notice them or not. But it's the ability to redirect your attention to it. Or another way to think of it is with your peripheral vision. Usually you're just looking at things, and sometimes you can stop and deliberately focus on your peripheral vision, right? So you're still looking straight ahead, and what you're looking at straight ahead kind of fades into the background, and you're just, oops, I just poked my mic here. You're just focusing on what you're able to see blurry and undefined in your peripheral vision. So redirecting your attention. Another thing that you can do to practice this is micro pauses. So you get that email from your annoying friend and you read it and you're like, I'm going to hold on. Before you write that response, take a pause. Take a pause. Right? Now, that's not telling you what direction to go in. I mean, you might still light the guy up on an email, but you're at least thinking it through a bit and saying, what's the appropriate response? Or somebody cuts you off in traffic. Do I honk the horn? Do I get up on his bumper? Or do you just pause and put a little space in there before so you feel the activation in your body? Just put a little pause in there. And it takes 2 or 3 seconds. You don't have to become a yoga master. You don't have to commit to hours of meditation, just 2 or 3 seconds. And what happens is, the more you do this, you start to exercise that muscle. You start to train your brain to leave a little space between the stimulus and the response. And once you start to train your brain to do that, that also then starts to open up the possibility of deciding, do I need to do something in the situation? Do I need to move this over into a slow thinking process before I quickly do something that I'm going to regret? Do I need to do nothing in this moment and just let it pass because my emotions are very high? I'm really hot right now. I'm going to say something that I'm going to regret. Can I just hit the pause, let the emotions die down, and then come back at it with a bit more sober thought and a better, well thought out plan than what I feel like doing in the moment?
Seems to me, Dave, that metacognition should be something we learn from kindergarten till we graduate college. Feels like it should be a mandatory class for everybody, because it feels like to me that this is one of the biggest problems in the world, is that people just, they're reacting, they're so trigger happy, and not enough people are finding that pause in the moment to say, what's going to be the right thing to do here? And that isn't to say that people don't continue to act on their instincts, right?
Right. There may be a time where instinct makes the most sense, where you don't need to think it
Right.
through. You can just act on your gut. Certainly, and I go back to driving because there's so many analogies there. But if if you see out of the corner of your eye somebody is drifting into your lane, you don't want to pause and think through, now what are my options here? Do I want to speed up? Do I want to slow down? Do I want to press on the brake? No, you're going to just react to it automatically and not think about it. So there are plenty of places where automatic thought is not only the preferred thing but necessary. But all of these things become self-correcting over time. And I think rather than get stuck on, which is the most appropriate to use where, look at where you're ending up and ask yourself, is that where I want to be? If all of your interactions with your boss are ending in conflict and tension, then that negative outcome that's repeatable and predictable is something that's worth looking at and say, okay, is there something that I can do differently to change where we're going? How much of this do I have control over? You don't have control over what your coworkers and your boss and your neighbor, you have no control over what they do. So if you step back from it and say, well, what can I do to change the outcome of it? You have a long-term plan that you can start to think through, but then the metacognition piece is in those little moments where you choose to react, say something or not say something. Is there some pattern there that you can intervene to get you to a different place?
I love it. Dr. Dave can be followed at drdaveaz.com. You can also just scan that QR code that's in the top left right now and be taken straight to his Substack channel, where you can read everything that we talk about each Wednesday. Hey, you'll like this, Dave. Tomorrow, Jill McMahon is back, and we're going to be talking about how to handle grief in the workplace. And it's going to be a dynamite discussion because I don't know if you know this, Dave, but grief is more than death. This is something she's educated me on hundreds of times. And so it's going to be a great chat. I welcome everybody back to it. I just want to mention before we roll too, if you want to hit that like and subscribe button as we build this channel. As I was thinking about it, this is just an opportunity to learn over lunch, pop us on for 20 minutes and pick up something that you maybe didn't know before. And that'll make you just 1% better in your life. People always talk about that, just getting incrementally better every single day. And something like metacognition can certainly help.
Right.
So thanks for that, bud. I'm going to be sharpening that tool.
Yeah, look for the Substack article later. Today, my gears were turning in slow motion, and every time I looked up at the clock, 20 minutes had gone by, and I only finished another small paragraph of it. I have the outline, and I was like, "Oh my God, I got to go on in 15 minutes." So I have to.
It's all good.
Switch gears
all
here,
good.
but the article will be out later today.
Looking forward to it, man. We'll see everybody tomorrow when Jill's back for Guns and Grief. Dr. Dave, have a great rest of your day. And thanks everybody for watching on our YouTube channel or listening where you get podcasts. Have a great rest of your day.